Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm back with Jackie Goldstein, who is just a creative phenomenon. And it's just so interesting to hear what she's done in the past and what she's doing now. And I want to ask you a little bit about you, Jackie. How do you keep yourself entertained? How do you keep yourself up to date? How do you keep yourself energized and invigorated to keep doing these projects over and over and over again?
I am just sitting here shaking my head because sometimes I have no idea how I really do that. You know, I just really love doing what I do a lot. The hardest part is when I'm not engaged in something. You know, I think that's the hardest part, and it's just keeping active and kind of trusting that those things will happen again when I'm in those periods of not really being engaged, you know, not having a project going on at that time. Because I've been freelancing for a little over 20 years. And so there are always those peaks and valleys of being really ultra busy until you kind of can't see air. You're so busy. And then there's the times where you're just kind of sitting on your hands wondering, oh, okay. But I've learned to just trust that it's going to happen, and there's no rhyme or reason. Things just kind of fall out of the sky for me.
Well, are there any projects you really wouldn't take, Jackie?
Absolutely. There are a lot of projects that I would not take for companies or causes that I don't believe in, that I think are disingenuous or dishonest. I used to tell, when I had my company Galileo, I told him that I didn't want to take projects from certain drug companies regarding certain drugs, because I didn't want to ever turn on 2020 or 60 Minutes and see them holding up a design that I had designed, you know, the brochure for a certain drug that now is being sued. And I wouldn't work for the tobacco industry. There are some industries that I won't work for. And there have been some people that I don't want to work for. And that was pretty obvious from one or two meetings that this was not going to go well, because I just didn't trust that person.
Well, that has a lot to do with, I mean, I always talk to people about if they fire clients or not. And, of course, one of the reasons not to fire a client is never to take them in the first place.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get started in something. And have you ever had a client that had strong personal preferences and wanted to dictate the end product?
Yes, and we've had it even worse. And it was a big company, we got into the project and realized that it wasn't about us, it wasn't about the project. We were being used as a political football between two different departments in this big company. And so we were getting battered around, and one department would make a decision and the next department would say, no, that's not how we want it. We want it this way. We'd change everything around and we'd show it, no. And it was a power struggle. And I said, I can't work like this. And we fired that client.
Boy, it sounds like the politics that we're involved with now.
Yeah, exactly. It just got so ugly. It was stressing me out so much. I couldn't figure it out, you know? And the other thing is, I used to teach. I used to teach at the Art Institute of Atlanta and Georgia Tech and Georgia State here. And I taught, and I would always tell students to make sure that when they started working on a project that they got a certain amount of money up front. If it's a small project, get 50% up front and whatever, and then figure out if you want 25 and 25 or 50, however you want to structure that. And inevitably, I would always get a question from a kid that said, well, what if they don't want to pay you up front? You know, thinking like, well, I'll lose the job. And I said, well, from my experience, the guys that don't want to pay at the beginning don't want to pay at the end. And I'd rather know that sooner than later. So, you know, don't be afraid to get paid up front.
Well, that's true. You know, I would think that there are people that say, no, bring me this or bring me that, and then I'll give you X number of dollars or X percent of the project or whatever.
Right.
But it's true. I mean, you need to have something to work on while you're doing this. And to me, what you stated in terms of that football that was going back and forth, it is always amazing to me that organizations, companies, whatever, organizations would spend money, waste money on doing something like that. I mean, what is the end game?
Don't know. And I just didn't want to be part of it. I just said, I can't do this. I can't. I don't know what your end game is. And this isn't worth it to me. This just isn't worth it. And
so what would be your ideal project?
Oh, an ideal project would be a company that either is rebranding or starting up, and wants to do something very, very different. And I don't even know what that is, but they really want to take a big step and take a look at a very new way to do things. And I would love to try that.
So what if I am this new company that's starting out? I mean, if I'm just starting out, I really don't have any money. So how would I afford someone like you?
Well, see, that's my well-funded startup issue. I have to have somebody not just working from their basement with a great idea. And, I've taken those on occasionally because I've gotten sucked into the vortex of excitement of a new product or service.
Right.
But it just kind of never really pans out, and it can't work because I can't keep giving, and then I become like resentful of this project, because it's sucking up a lot of my time and not paying me, and I have to. This is how I make my living, so it has to be a pretty well-funded project to do something like that.
So, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do in your spare time?
It's funny because working from home, there's a lot of slip sliding into free time and work time. So sometimes it's not like turn it off and walk away and do something, but I love walking, so I'll walk like an hour more every day, and that's a good thought time for me. And just kind of being with friends, and I don't know, I love to travel, so that's always exciting. I like the planning part and the traveling part and the remembering part. So I like having adventures. I like doing new things.
It's so funny because I always start my day off working out. It's just something I do. I think it's what keeps me going and allows me to work the way I do. But I get it because my first business, I ended up with 7 offices and 350 people, which I never want to do again. And then I went on the road as a speaker, and of course I was never home. And I had a woman in my office who worked for me for 40 years, first in my first business and then in the speaking business, and she really kept me on track. And I didn't realize all the work she did for me until I moved and I found all the old files and projects that she had worked on and so forth. But that was that. And now here I am, working out of my home. And since it's so convenient to just go from room to room, I could work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day if I wanted to. Right. But in reality, it's a matter of balance. I think it's a matter of balance. And what is balance for one is not balance for another. And, people say, oh, I'd love to be in your suitcase. And I say, no, you wouldn't. I mean, you never survive, But
it's like people are always, so go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go ahead and say what you were going to say, because I think it's going to wrap right into what I was talking about.
Well, people are always saying to me, well, you work for yourself, so you're able to make your own hours and go when you want to go and come when you want to come and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I'm still at the mercy of my clients, because if they pick up the phone and call me and they need something, I'm totally at their mercy. I can't make my own schedule either.
Well, that's true. And I mean, there is, look, we have a certain amount of leeway. You can be available all the time, or you can be available some of the time. And, it's funny because I think a lot depends on the parameters you set. For example, I had a friend who was very popular in the coaching and speaking and consulting world, and he was available 24/7. And I was having just a coffee with him, and he got 3 phone calls while we were there. He took all 3 of them, and I think he signed a contract for $200,000. And yet I have another friend who you can't reach him. You just can't reach him. If you want to get in touch with him, you have to fax his secretary, not him. And she gathers all the stuff once a week. They're not even in the same location, and sends it to him in a mail package. He does have coaching clients, and there are certain days of the week and certain times. But, he's very hard to get a hold of. And it works for him, too. So everybody kind of has their own schedule, and I think that's an important part of being, who you are, really. But I would think that, working for yourself and out of your home gives you some flexibility, and yet it also makes people think, well, she's always available. On the other hand, you have friends, too, that think, well, she's just home.
Right.
She can come to lunch whenever, she can go to the theater whenever. And, I do those things, but they're on my schedule when I want to do them. And I think that's important. So, what else do you do? What, let me ask you this. What has transitioned from the time you worked for a company like Ted Turner's and maybe some other organizations you worked for, and then when you started freelancing on your own and, you were married and you had a responsibility, what were the changes that you had to go through going from an atmosphere like Turner to freelancing?
Well, when I left Turner, actually, I ran away from Turner. I ran away, and I ran to Europe, and I just had to have some space, and I needed to just breathe because I hadn't breathed in several years working for Turner. And when I came, and I quit my job and I went away to Europe. And when I came back, it was a very big adjustment for me because Turner had been my identity. People would say, and what are you doing? I'd go, well, I'm art director, Turner Broadcasting. And doors would open and people were interested. And when I came back and people said, what are you doing? I would say, well, I used to be art director of Turner Broadcasting. And I kind of don't know what I'm doing now. And it took me a while to find a partner who we eventually started a company that was Galileo and built that company for 9 years. And that was really exciting. And that was very different because now my partner and I were responsible for hiring and paying people salaries and making all the decisions. And I sold that company a little over 20 years ago and started freelancing. And I also got married within about a month. I sold my business and got married. So I loved being at home. And I still do I love working at home. There are occasions where I get a little socially crazy and I just have to get out of the house and go somewhere and do something just to be around people. I think that's still the hardest thing. But for the most part, I really enjoy doing it. And I'm not, because I'm not in a company, I'm not in a corporate setting, I'm not pulled away in the middle of something to attend a meeting, and I don't have to schedule a lot of to me, a lot of not really productive time into my days that I used to have to do a lot at Turner that were more management things or just getting filled into what was going on in other places and not that relevant. Just seemed like a lot of...
Well, yeah, I think, most people when they go from working in any large company to being on their own, it's really difficult for them because they don't have a secretary, they don't have people to call on. They also don't have all the equipment that they might need, because they're furnishing it themselves. So there's that. And then, of course, you went from a large company where you had a distinguished title to an entrepreneurial company to freelancing on your own. So there were actually a couple of different changes that you went through. And what is Jackie's future? What do you see yourself doing in the future? How is it going to change?
Well, I definitely don't see myself like retiring. I want to keep doing what I'm doing until I can't hold a mouse in my hand or whatever it's going to be.
It's funny because I went to a lecture yesterday. It was something different, but they had a guest speaker on Social Security, and everybody was talking. And these are all people who own their own companies. They all really couldn't wait until they retired and started collecting Social Security. And I said, when I got up and I introduced, because we do introductions, I said, I'm never going to retire, and I'm probably the oldest one here. And it's because I love what I do, So I think that that shows you how much you love what you do,
I love learning new things, and with every client I have learned, I can't tell you the oddball things I have had to learn. I've had to learn medical gas systems in hospitals. Why would I ever have to learn that? I've had to learn all these unusual things to do the projects that I have to do, and it's fascinating to me. I love learning about what people do. I'm fascinated by people, so I don't see myself ever really stopping. It's going to evolve somehow, but I don't know how. And I'm also, like I said, I'm kind of media fearless. So if the technology changes, I look forward to having to learn something new in the technology. That just doesn't scare me.
So where did your husband fit into all of this? I mean, did he do what you did, or is he retired, or how does all of that work out?
Well, he works from home. And no, he's not retired. He's younger than I am. So,
you cougar, you, right?
Cougar. And so he also works from home, and we have our own separate spaces. So we kind of, every once in a while, I'll go in there. I'll go, come in here. You need to see what I'm doing. Which do you like better? What works for you? He's my feedback. So that's
Is he in the same industry?
Not at all. He does. He works for a corporate dining company that's out of California, and he does the Northeast section, the Northeast market. So they do a lot of corporate.
Fantastic. That's dining. Great.
Mm-hmm. When I married him, he was a chef, so it's always fun.
So does he do the cooking?
Not anymore. Not really. But at the beginning,
so funny because I don't cook at all, and my husband was certainly not a cook, but he could broil things, But now that I'm alone, I mean, it's everything with me is either I go to Whole Foods and I get prepared meals, or I microwave, one or the other.
There you go.
But so, have you ever had any other pets other than your two dogs?
Just other dogs. I'm a big dog lover. I'm just a big dog lover. I can't live without a dog in my life.
Well, I know how you feel. When my kids were little, I had 3 kids and 5 dogs and 3 cats.
Oh,
so
my
it was
God.
a total zoo. Yeah, it was a zoo. And I had a little Yorkie, and she passed away. And now where I live in Miami, I live in a couple of different places, but in Miami, I'm renting, and they will not allow dogs, believe it or not, in my building. There's 3 different buildings. In one building, you can have a dog 50 pounds or less. In the other building, you can have a dog 20 pounds or less. And in my building, and this is for the renters, not the owners, the renters can't have a dog, but they can have 3 cats. So, I don't know. I have no idea how that works. But anyway, so
that's a very new math. I don't understand that.
I mean, I don't either, believe me. So, what if you could do one thing that you haven't done, Jackie? If there's one thing that Jackie could say, okay, someone would grant me this secret wish, what would it be?
Wow. You know, I think years ago I would have had the answer to that, because years ago I really wanted to work in film, an art director of film. I don't know that I have the real energy to do that right now anymore, because that is very consuming. Um, but I think it's really just, I don't think there's, I think it really is just more of what I do for new people, just helping new people.
Well, I know I can understand what you're saying, because I feel like my bucket list is pretty well filled, and I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. But in terms of directing a film, if you weren't doing anything else, Jackie, I think you would have the energy and the wherewithal to do it, because your creative juices would be flowing, and there's so many ways to do it today that I'm sure you'd find a way. So that's a key component as well. So when we talk about what you're doing now and the things that you're creating for clients, is there a particular industry that you like to work in more than others?
No, not really, because I've worked in a lot of different industries, from telecommunications, banking, technology, um, just a little bit of retail. I've done a wide variety of things, and it's really just what I'm working on at that time that's the most fascinating to me.
And when you work with a company, let's say a small company,
Mm-hmm.
or even a large one, do you like to work with one person, or do you like to work, when I'm saying this, on the other end? In other words, do you want to be in contact with one person, or do you like working with a team?
I would prefer to work with one point of contact. And it's okay if there are other people that get brought in from the company in certain meetings, but I would prefer to have that one person who has the authority to make the decisions, because it's very, very difficult when I start doing design by committee and decision by committee, because everybody has their own opinion. And the more people that they bring in, I call it the lift your leg on it theory. Everybody has to like lift the leg on it. You know, and because that validates who they are and their value to the group. And it can get so crazy and so out of hand, and then it becomes just very difficult to sometimes, that's the challenge, is just to manage that group. I would really just like to work for one person, and they can go ahead and talk to people at their company and come back and give me some feedback, but I would really just rather work with one critical point person. That makes
And who is that critical point person? Because I would think that maybe in a small company it might be the president or the founder, but in a larger company I would think it would be, maybe the creative director. It might be the VP of advertising or sales or marketing. But then you get somebody who's above them who comes in to put their 2 cents. What happens then?
It just becomes very political, and you hope that it doesn't, but sometimes it can. So it's really just kind of treating their opinions with respect, and making it clear, these are the things, this is where we are in the process, this is what we've already agreed on. And if you come in here and you start changing a lot of things, then that's project creep. That's like, could change the scope of the project and there will be additional costs. So I really try to manage it that way.
So if people wanted to find you, Jackie, where can they find you? How would they get in touch with you?
Easiest way is to just find me online at JackieGoldstein.com.
And that's Jackie, Jackie, and that's Goldstein, Goldstein.com, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, JackieGoldstein.com. If there are those of you out there are a couple of things I want to say. Number one, you can hear the energy that Jackie has. So first of all, it just shows you don't have to retire when you have to retire. What you have to do is love what you're doing and want to keep doing it. That's number one. Number two, she has a tremendous background, starting when she was working for Turner, and now that she has had so many projects on her own in the last 20 years. This is someone who can really, really help you when it comes to designing the way your business should look. So if you are in business and you want somebody who can really, I think, pump some energy into your brand, your look, your whole image of what you're doing, that's someone like Jackie. So I strongly recommend going to her website, JackieGoldstein.com, see what she's all about, see if it's something that you can do and you can do well. And what are some of the things that we haven't said that we should say, Jackie, on your behalf? Are there some things that you'd like to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
I think you've really done a great job of getting a lot of. I'm not used to talking about myself so much, Gayle, as much as I am trying to understand other people's stories. So I really appreciate that. And I so hope that my love and passion for what I do and the fun that I bring to the projects and the fun that I bring to working together with my clients came across, and it doesn't
sure did.
It doesn't have to be intimidating. It really can be a joyful experience. And if you've ever had a bad experience going through this kind of rebranding or branding and all that, then give me a call, because it'll be a different experience. I can guarantee it. You'll enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, my guest has been Jackie Goldstein at JackieGoldstein.com. Thanks so much for being with us, Jackie. And I know our listening audience is really going to enjoy our conversation today.
Thanks, Gayle. It's been a treat.